But to rent this vehicle of your body, how much would Steve Jobs rent for one day, your body, regardless of what shape it's in, as long as you can fog a mirror, meaning you're breathing, he'll rent it? The answer is everything. He died with about $60 billion for one day. If he had the potential and possibility to rent your body for one day, he would rent it for all. And that's a tie-in to not only is time your most precious, never fleeting asset, but to also recognize your body. I mean, I grew up, I wasn't religiously brought up, but I heard a phrase, something like treat your body like a temple. Growing up poor, I didn't know what a temple was.
Martians landed.
Yes.
Wearing Prada suits.
Yes.
Drinking Henry Seltzer.
Yes.
Chewing juicy fruit.
Yes, and?
Your branding here.
Yes, brand.
Your message here.
Yes, and?
A verse about.
Yes.
Your product here.
Yes.
I'm Hersh Rephun.
Yes, and?
I'm a message therapist.
Yes.
And I have a podcast.
Yes, brand.
That's right, that's it.
Yes.
We'll help you fix the world.
Yes.
Or your bottom line.
All right.
Your bottom line.
Get it. I get it. Welcome to the Yes Brand Podcast.
In the hot seat at Yes Brand today is none other than Tom Beal. Tom Beal is known as the Simplifier. I'm hoping he can simplify my life. He definitely has stuff that he has to share that you don't want to miss today. One of which is we're going to talk about his book, You Are Not Dead Yet. And I think that's a very important lesson because a lot of us are working toward a lot of different things, but I don't know that we stop to take a breath and wonder if maybe we're working harder, not smarter. So anyway, Tom Beal, welcome to Yes Brand.
Thanks for having me, Hersh. It's an honor to be here, and I'm excited for our conversation. And hopefully you as a listener will gain some massive insights from our awesome chats today.
I hope so, because one thing that listeners have figured out is that they are never wasting time by tuning into this show, but there probably is a lot of other shit that they do that they really would prefer to be channeling their energies into something more useful and effective. I think we often get the misapprehension that we're actually being productive by burning ourselves out. And I know you don't feel that way. So talk a little bit about that, about burnout versus victory versus success.
Yes. Well, and there's a little, I'll get to that in a second, but you hit on something that the conversation goes exactly where it needs to go. So here's one of the most key important lessons that I'm happy you brought up that triggered this in my mind right away. And it is living a life intentionally versus by default. And my good friend Brendon Burchard calls it browser blackout. We've all been in that mode where you go to YouTube to look for something. Next thing you know, it's 2 hours later. You're like, what the heck just happened? You got caught up in that unintentional living. You went there first with an intent, and then you got distracted and scroll, video, and hour, 2 hours go by. So let me ask you this as a listener, and Hersh, ask yourself this. Is it fair to say that you might mindlessly swipe or mindlessly waste time unintentionally for 30 minutes a day? And I know my own answer is yes, easily. 30 minutes, that's a given. Easy, right? A lot of you are probably like, I wish it was only 30. It's an hour. It's maybe 2 hours. Well, let's just stick with 30 to cement this into your mind. And I've shared this with people that are producing tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars, my clients, that they will text me and say, dude, I caught myself and I remembered this lesson. So this lesson, I want to be something that is cemented into your brain so that you live your life intentionally and don't waste your most precious and ever fleeting asset, which is time. So 30 minutes a day of mindless swipe. We all agree to do way more than that. But 30 minutes times 365 gives you that number. You can do the math. Divide that number. That's going to give you the minutes. Divide that by 60. That's going to give you the hours in a year. Divide that by 40. And we're dividing it by 40 because 40 is a 40-hour work week. A lot of us are familiar with that back in the corporate world days, 9 to 5, right? 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, 40 hours. You know, that's a big chunk of time. It's a big commitment. So 30 minutes a day, following that math, and I broke the math down because when I first heard this, I was like, there's no way that's right. And I went and did the math, like, holy crap, it is right. 30 minutes, which we've all agreed is way less than what we do of unintentional swiping and mindlessly, unintentionally leading our life and letting our most precious asset being stolen, equals 4.5 40-hour work weeks in a year. Let that sink in for a
Okay.
second.
Yeah.
4.5 40-hour work weeks. We're talking a month. Think back to a month of 9 to 5. I'm sure y'all remember that. A month is a long time. 4.5 40-hour work weeks. So a month and a half of a work week by 30 minutes of mindlessly swiping. And we already agreed 30 minutes is no big deal. So let's go to an hour, which is more on path to where we all really are. An hour a day throughout the year is 9 40-hour work weeks, 2.5 months of wasted time, right? So I'm sharing this with you right off the bat to help you embrace and grab the steering wheel of your most precious and ever fleeting asset, which is time. And you probably heard people say time is more valuable than money. You can always get more money. You can't get more time. Right out my window here, I'm in St. Thomas. That's Hans Lalick out there. That's an island owned by the co-founder of Google, Larry Page, who, by the way, is missing. I'm gonna go search for him. You're a comedian, you'll get this. My mission is now to go find Larry Page. He's probably hiding on his island somewhere out there.
Right.
But Larry Page is a billionaire. We remember another billionaire. I'm using one of his tools right now, my Apple iPhone, Steve Jobs. We're going to transition to the other aspect of that 4.5 hours of wasted time by 30 minutes of mindlessly, unintentionally swiping, time being your most valuable and precious asset. If Steve Jobs could rent your body, Hersh, my body, or your body, you, the listener, for one day, and let me just preface this. We all know that you can go rent a nice car, you can rent a nice house, you can rent a nice yacht, you can go rent an island if you have the means. But to rent this vehicle of your body, how much would Steve Jobs rent for one day, your body, regardless of what shape it's in? As long as you can fog a mirror, meaning you're breathing, he'll rent it. The answer is everything. He died with about $60 billion for one day. If he had the potential and possibility to rent your body for one day, he would rent it for all. And that's a tie-in to not only is time your most precious and ever fleeting asset, but to also recognize your body. I mean, I grew up, I wasn't religiously brought up, but I heard a phrase, something like treat your body like a temple. Growing up poor, I didn't know what a temple was. I know what a nice car is. I know what a nice house is. I know what a nice boat is. So that's my way of not only solidifying two big ahas for you right off the bat. One, live intentionally. Don't let yourself get caught in that browser blackout. Don't waste your most precious and ever fleeting asset. Invest it. And that circles back, Hersh, to what you said, not you here as a listener, because you here are choosing to invest your time. There's a difference between wasting your time and investing your time. Similarly, as there's an equal, the asset that's less than time, which is money, there's a way to waste your money and there's a way to invest your money. This is a return on your investment. So that's my intention. And here we are right off the bat. You got two big lessons to cement in your brain. So my clients doing tens of millions and hundreds of millions of dollars, when they catch themselves like, oh, crap, I've been unintentionally swiping and mindlessly wasting my most precious asset. They'll text me like, hey, dude, I remembered that. Thanks. That helped. And then also to remember that your body is the most coveted vehicle in the universe, right? So if the billionaires could rent your body, the billionaires that are dead and gone could rent your body, forget jets and mansions, they would rent your body for everything for one day, even half a day. So just keep that in mind. So what are you putting into your body? That's the other lesson. Your body, just like a car, we know to put high octane fuel into your car is going to make it run a little better. High octane fuel for our body inside this is water, right? Water is our high octane fuel, right? So what are you putting in your body of this multi-trillion-dollar vehicle that is going to fuel you to have the proper energy and have the proper reserves to give you the passion, the commitment, the dedication necessary to turn your business and turn your dreams into realities? And it circles back to being the owner, operator, and caretaker of this $1 trillion vehicle, right? So those are two big lessons right off the bat that I want to share with you before we get into the challenge that I was given many years ago. This is actually in 2001 and right around September 11th, 2001. I think we all remember where the heck we were around that timeline. I was the publisher of the North Carolina Home Book. It was a resource for anybody looking to build, remodel, or decorate their $1 million plus home in Charlotte, Greensboro, or Raleigh-Durham. And when I moved to North Carolina to be the publisher of that book, I went to BNI, Business Network International, and plugged in and was getting the message out. And every time I went somewhere, like, oh, you need to meet Ricky. You need to meet Ricky. You need to meet Ricky. Ricky used to work with Tony Robbins back when Tony worked with Jim Rohn. And after a few times I heard that, I'm like, I need to meet Ricky. Ricky worked with Jim Rohn the same time that Tony did. And there's a lot of cool stories and fun stuff. Like they were the sales team working way back in that time. They were in personal development way back in the late 70s, early 80s. and great stories. And while they're out at the bar, Tony's they're picking on him because he's in his room studying. They're like, what a dork, like, and here you are. And I am proud to be a dork, by the way, because I too subscribe to a lot of podcasts, listened to teleseminars way back in the day. And one day said, man, one day, wouldn't it be great if I could share some insights that could help others the way this person's helping me? Right. So I was the dork too. And whether you want to admit it, we're all dorks because
We're all
we're here.
dorks.
Right. And
Yeah.
own it with pride. But I was working so hard. I was in workaholic mode, and I was bragging about I'm getting to the office before 7 and I'm leaving about 7. And he's sitting across from me. And this actually was early 2002. And I'm remembering this now because my son was born 2/22/2002. And this must have been March. So shortly after my son was born, I'm bragging to him, Ricky, how hard I'm working. And he's like, man, Tom, I can tell that you're looking for me to pat you on the back and say, yeah, keep going. That's the way to do it. He's like, we are in a time where people applaud their addiction to workaholism. He's like, so it actually saddened me to hear how you're working because aren't you newly married? I said, yeah. Don't you have a new baby? I said, yeah. How much time are you spending with your wife? How much time are you spending with your new baby? And at that moment, like when he said that, it was like a piercing iron going through my heart. Like, whoa. He's like, I know you're wanting that pat on the back. He said, but if you want to impress me, get the same results in half the time. And that fried my brain, right? That led me down the path. That was like, whoa, because I grew up, if it's going to be, it's up to me. You got to work hard, no pain, no gain. Those were the mantras that I grew up on. So I was like, yeah, I'm going to work harder than anybody. I'll outwork anybody. And I took pride in my workaholism until that very conversation. And it opened my framework to hear that. And he probably saw my mind melt when he said it. And it helped me reframe and say, you know what? I accept that challenge. I'm going to now see how I can get the same results in half the amount of my time, which I was working easily 80 hours plus a week, right? But how could I get? And he's like, even then it still wouldn't be impressive. You got to do it again. So a continual, and that's what led me to being the simplifier. How can you break the paradigms in your mind from the programming that we had as children? In that case, you heard some of the programs that I was under, and say, wow, there is a way to get the same results in half the amount of my time, especially in today's day and age with here we are communicating Jetsons style. Back when in 2001, this wasn't available. Yeah. Right. We're now at the Jetsons level to include AI, to include outsourcing, to include, anything you can conceive and believe you can achieve. That quote from Napoleon Hill. We're at that point in time where it's true. Whatever your mind can conceive and believe as the result you're looking for, you can get to that result without you having to be the one doing all the work. And that's where team. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, that I want to dig into this because the hard work, we hear so much work harder, not you work smarter, not harder. And we hear, delegate, and we hear about, the systems we need to put in place to scale. But there's also a sense of sometimes you wake up in the morning and you don't know how else you're going to get that stuff done. And that if you sleep for 2 more hours or whatever it might be, and you say, I'll sleep for 2 more hours, you feel like, okay, what's happening in those 2 hours to get me to that goal? And, what is kind of the first barrier that you need to break down in order to start living your life in the way? And I totally believe that, the happier you are in life, the more fulfilled, the more time you spend with your family, the more of those things you accomplish, the more return you will get. But when you wake up to that, blank computer or that, the moment of, is everything happening that's supposed to be happening? How do you combat that when all those pressures and all those things are swirling around?
All right. So I'll share with you my Trinity success method. And success, most people equate success to the money in the bank, right? And that's part of it. That's one part of it. But I've been that person who had the huge amount of money, but my health was in the crapper or my relationships was in the crapper, and that's not success. So the Trinity success method, I broke it into a triangle. The base of the triangle is health. The left side is relationships and the right side is finances. So in the middle is success. And so it's all three, and 2 out of 3 still suck. But you need all 3. You need your health. Right. And just like success, most people jump to money as the the judge or
The indicator, yeah.
the indicator, right? With health, a lot of people judge the appearance in the mirror. That's only one of the three aspects too. So below the main triangle, there's another triangle for health, and that's your mental health, your physical health, and your emotional/spiritual health. So mentally, physically, emotionally, right? Need those. For your relationship, same thing. Another three things: your personal relationships, your professional relationships, and your social relationships. Not all relationships are the same. Going back to that time being the great equalizer, you can't give equal time to equal amount of people. You got to know who your people are personally, professionally, and socially, and dispense that time accordingly. And then over to finances, it's another three things. It's your today money, your tomorrow money, and your contribution. Your today money is what's your nut, what's your including your lifestyle, your bills, your expenses, and your overhead, including your lifestyle. What's that monthly number? It's different for everybody. And I know I've been when my nut was here and my income was way less than the nut, less money per month, right? And it's not the most creative space to be in, right? So the first goal is to get above your today money, right? So you got to give proper attention to my today money. How can I grow that and maximize that so that I'm as above that nut as possible? And then your tomorrow money are those bigger projects, right? I've been that person who was many years ago way below my today money nut, and yet I had the big dream and idea, and it's just hard to be that creative person. But
you don't have the freedom of thought. Even you're under too much pressure. Yeah, you're in survival mode. You can't be in both. Right. You can't be in survival and big picture mode at the same time. You know.
So first, get to that survival mode. Get out of that to get the today money squared away. Then still, once you get the today money squared away, and you're working on your tomorrow money projects, that means don't totally neglect making sure you're checking the indicators for your today money. It's not set it and forget it. Make sure that machine's still kicking in. I had one friend who had done very, very well, like to the tune of multiple tens of millions, and he was working on this $1 billion project. And I kept reminding him, what are you doing to bring income in today? And he had multiple millions in reserves. Don't worry, I'm all set. I'm like, you've been saying that for a few years now. And I'm starting to get concerned. No, don't worry. And he literally burned through tens of millions of dollars on that $1 billion project, that tomorrow money project. And he went from being set for what most people would be for life to now back to survival mode, right? He just he put all in on that. And I said, maybe it will become that $1 billion business. Maybe it won't. None of us know, but don't neglect your today money. And anyhow, so that's a whole diversion. Then also the contribution. This goes into a report I read back in the early 2000s from Jack Canfield and Mark Victor Hansen. Basically, you can't outgive. Like the more you give, the more you receive. You don't give to try to work out what the ROI is, but just it's a way to, as this human entity that we are, I'm so selfish. I give a lot. And I give because I know it makes an impact in the various things that I give. But the real reason I give is it feels so good to help those people and organizations that I feel I want to share my support with. Right. I'm so selfish. Like it's a selfish thing to give. Like it feels so good to me. And this here, like what we're doing here, I love getting feedback from listeners like, whoa, you connected some dots. You mentioned I'm the simplifier. From my experiences, here's three things that separate you, Hersh, and you, the viewer listening to this, from everyone else who, whether they're a competitor or not. These three things separate you from everyone else and separate me from everyone. And it makes you unique. And these three things are your PEP, your PEP, your personality, your experiences, and your perspective. Right. So a lot of the things I share are from me putting a lot of good information in. I was a huge nerd, dork, and weirdo studying, reading, going to live seminars, listening to teleseminars, going to live events, meeting my heroes, working with them. And I've worked with some of the most amazing men of our time, some no longer here. And that's part of it, but also my experiences. I've lived a crazy, adventurous life and have had some great challenges that I've overcome, have some great results, have had some great failures, that I'm here to share my experiences with you. Guess what? My personality and my experiences are going to benefit you, just like your personality and your experiences will benefit your people. And then your perspective. One simple way to understand perspective is if we see a car crash and there's three people that see the car crash, all three people are going to have a different perspective and a different story of how and what they saw, right? So those three things separate you from anyone in your space: your personality, your experience, and your perspective. When you own those, you don't try to be the next Tony Robbins or the next Tom Beal or the next Hersh. You just be you fully and unapologetically, which leads to one of my other things that I teach. I am me, F you. I am me, F you. I am me fully and unapologetically. That's it. And when you're you fully unapologetically, some people resonate with you. It's SW4. Some will, some won't. So what? Someone's waiting, right? But there's nothing better than figuring out how to just be you fully and unapologetically, and do it in a way that brands yourself to where people say, hey, out of all these people, I like this dude. I like this gal. I like her. I like him. Like whoever you are, no matter who your competition is, when you own your personality, experience, and perspective, they don't jive with those other people. They jive with, like, just be you. There's nothing better than figuring out how to get paid for being you. At least in my opinion, that's been
Tom. Are you using that as a book title?
That actually was the initial book title for this. I Am Me, F You.
Yeah.
And I went down to, I paid my good friend Jeffrey Gitomer, New York Times bestselling author numerous times, the best-selling sales author of all times. I paid $10,000 to go spend a week, and I've been friends with him. I introduced him to Jim Kelly back in way back, and so anyhow, I've been friends with him for ages. He was my mentor in the early 2000s when I moved to Charlotte for that North Carolina home book.
Right.
But I invested with him to go spend time with him and his wife at his place in South Carolina. And I went there with the book title being I Am Me, F You.
Yeah.
And we molded it to this. You are not dead yet. But I Am Me, F You was the initial intent for this book.
So how did you shift, and why did you move away from that title, if you recall?
I Am Me, F You will be one chapter in this, but it probably will spin off to be its own individual book. It's just a very powerful concept. It really dives into the Maslow hierarchy of needs and becoming that self-actualized person where you just are totally comfortable being you fully and unapologetically. And that's my way of basically taking, what the Maslow and who's the famous guy that recently passed. He used to talk about self-actualization anyhow. So that's my way of sharing. Just own yourself, own your personality, experience, and perspective. Embrace the I Am Me, F You philosophy. And you have to do it also. You don't have to do anything. That's the other lesson. You don't have to do anything. Everything is choice. But I would have you consider also the 4 agreements. 2 of the 4 agreements are tough. And those 2 that are tough for me, it's easy to be the other 2. The 2 that are tough for you is to never make assumptions, and never take anything personally. Right. So people are going to say things and to not make assumptions about what they're saying, just ask for clarification, and to not take some things personally. Like, I'm always amazed when people, like, here's this thing that blew my mind as well. So when I was back in the corporate world, I was a sales manager, and I had a huge Nightingale Conant library. And I came in, I'm like, listen, guys, I'm going to open up my Nightingale Conant library to you. I'm going to give you this. This person's getting the Tony Robbins audio. This one's getting the Brian Tracy one. And this one's getting the Zig Ziglar. Look, you guys are all salespeople. You learn this stuff, you apply this stuff, you'll earn more sales. And that helps me because the more sales you earn, the more my income grows. So I'm helping you. You got to help yourself. A couple things happened. One, I had to pretty much force them to even listen to it. Like, here, I gave them these courses that I purchased and I saw the value in it, but I gave it to them without them asking for it. And I pretty much had to force them. And then this really blew my mind. The person I gave the Tony Robbins information to, he's like, oh man, I listened to it for like 5 minutes. He's just all hype and energy. I couldn't take it. It's just too much. And it blew my mind. Like, Tony, I've been to Fiji with Tony. Tony's amazing. He's impacted my life tremendously. Ziegler, the guy I gave the Zig Ziglar tapes to, he's like, man, I listened to 5 minutes in that country accent. I just couldn't handle it. I couldn't listen more than 5 minutes. I was like, what? I'm like, oh. And I made the mistake at that time, my naivety. I tried convincing them how they need to get past that and embrace what I take the best, leave the rest. And I made the mistake of trying to convince them of how this could change them. I wasted my time, my most precious asset, trying to convince them. And then the third one, Brian Tracy, he's like, man, I listened to that for 5 minutes. I'd rather watch paint dry. Brian's so boring. I'm like, and those 3 gentlemen have impacted my results. And so
you should tell them, you should say, well, look, I think the problem is you need to start skipping the first 5 minutes.
Right. Apparently,
there's something about the first 5 minutes that's holding you back. But I totally get that. And I think also there's a whole process that I think predates all of the stuff that we're talking about, which is opening your mind, which is being ready to receive, wisdom, knowledge, all this stuff. Because we can be hungry for success or progress. But if we're not open to knowledge, then it doesn't matter, because we're going to end up doing that thing where we chase the big dream, sacrifice the today, money. And to appreciate somebody like Tony Robbins, who I don't know, but who I have matured in my appreciation of, the more that I talk to people who do know him and the more that I just pay attention to him. Because the fact is, a lot of people, once you get so big, all that people see is the perception that's out there. And sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. If people at that scale and that level, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter to the people who are interested in learning and working with him. But it's not going to hurt him, in other words. But it's going to cause people to miss out on a lot of really great wisdom and an example, and examples.
And that combined with the big lesson from that to you, the listener, and Hersh, you and I, the big lesson for me was, holy crap, even if you are Tony Robbins, Brian Tracy, and Zig Ziglar, and have done what you've done, impacted millions and millions of lives, each of them, people still aren't going to like you, right?
Yeah.
And so the big epiphany for you is there'll be people that resonate with you, embracing the I am me, F you, I am me fully and unapologetically, and you sharing your message and owning your personality, your experience, and your perspective. There'll be people that can't stand Tony, Zig, or Brian, but they love you, right? And the interesting part about it is your personality, your experience, and your perspective. I mean, the reason Tony is so amazing is he worked with Jim Rohn back in the late 70s, early 80s. He learned from the master and a lot of stuff. Like, I always get a kick out of people that see Tony and then see Jim, and they're like, man, Jim copied a lot of Tony's stuff. Like, well, actually, it's reversed. Jim was Tony's mentor. Jim was a teenager when he learned from, or Tony was a teenager when he learned from Jim, right? So Tony learned from Jim. And yes, he was amazing and he was a go-getter, but he got that foundational mentoring from the master, Jim Rohn, who a lot of Tony's stuff is similar to what Jim taught all those years ago.
Yeah.
Right? So, and that's awesome.
Now, with all of this, another thing that is really wonderful that happens is when we learn stuff, we end up teaching stuff, but not, there was this adage of those who can't do teach is so outdated. I've said this before. I get where it comes from. I get the joke of it, of what I mean, but it couldn't be farther from the truth, because it seems that so many of us that have done something, learned something, then are compelled to share it. And that in some cases becomes our pursuit, that becomes our next thing.
Well, and that that statement was made back when a teacher you worked in a school, right? Which had low pay, et cetera. Right. So now, and there's a thing where it's pretty much mentorship, right? So it's transitioned to not be the teacher, but it's to be that mentor. And look, I've gone down this path. I've achieved this. If you want to achieve something similar, I'm the guy who has been there, done that, right? So there's that. And it is, yes, a teacher, but it's also not, at least in my interpretation, back in the day, that was kind of a dig at the people who chose to teach. I'm going to go teach business at school or college, or high school or college or something. Well, you never had the courage to go create your own business. How can you teach, right? So that's kind of where it is. But I think it's evolved to this point where not everybody this is kind of like going back to sales. Not every great salesperson is a great sales manager. Not every great business owner who's achieved great results can be a great mentor or teacher, right? Because that takes deconstructing the 4 levels of learning. You start with being unconsciously incompetent, then you become consciously incompetent, then you become consciously competent, and then you become unconsciously competent. A lot of people were unconsciously competent in their success, and they can't deconstruct it to teach it in the conscious competence level. They can't help people ascend through those ranks. They just followed their gut and they did what they felt was theirs to do, and they can't necessarily break that down into a system or a program or a framework, right? So not every great business owner is a great teacher, just like not every great salesperson is a great sales manager. But for those who feel called and are willing to break it down and say, look, yes, there is some right time, right place type of scenarios that occurred, and it's not replicatable exactly. However, I broke it down, and here's pretty much the 9 words. Like, these 9 words, when I sit at a blank sheet of paper with me and my business partners have written offers, we start with these 9 words. And these offers have turned into $1 million launches numerous times. We had a streak of $1 million launches that no one had touched many years ago. And these 9 words are: tell your story, share your results, and sell your system. Tell your story, share your results, and sell your system. That's what Jim Rohn did. That's what Tony Robbins did. That's what Brian Tracy did. That's what Zig Ziglar did. That's what I did. That's what Gary Vee did. That's what, tell your story, share your results, and sell your system. The problem with that is, and I recognize this from my own journey. When I was in the Marine Corps, I was sitting in the back of a church listening to this one-legged person who had climbed the highest peaks, and he wrote a book. And I'm sitting there back there thinking, well, yeah, but I don't have one leg. I don't have a story. So I was sitting there in the back thinking I don't have a story. And here's what I've since found out through doing a lot of work. And first, let me just divert back to say, referencing Tony, learning from Jim and all this stuff, and people not liking Tony, Zig, and Brian Tracy, like that all was meant to be like a lot of stuff I teach is from the good information I took in, and it is my personality, experience, and perspective. And same for you. So like this is all circling into pouring this experience into you to say, yes, you can do this. So now, and that was a diversion that led me to.
You diverted with the intention of returning, but
Yes.
without a specific path to return to the thought that you had, which is fine.
Right. It happens. Yep.
You've been dropping so much good stuff in this short amount of time.
No, I remember it now.
I knew I would jog it. I would get
tell
you
your
back.
story, share your results, sell your system, right? So
Right.
tell your story, share your results. So I thought I didn't have a story. And I come to find out that my story, like here's my story. We don't know each other that well, but here's what, keep in mind as you hear this, you especially as a listener, I thought I didn't have a story because that was just my life. Like
Right.
most all of us don't think we have a story because that was just our life. We didn't know any better. We didn't know any different, right? So I was born to teenagers, a 17-year-old mother, a 19-year-old father, raised around 4 divorces and 6 marriages as a child, went to 9 different schools by 8th grade, grew up around welfare, alcoholism, abuse, neglect, police, all sorts of craziness. And through that became a top student, became a top athlete. I was a national bicycle champion at 16 years old. I was a top wrestler. I was an honor man out of boot camp in the United States Marine Corps. So Parris Island, South Carolina, 3 months of hell. I was the one that was chosen as the honor man, the valedictorian of my platoon at graduation. I received 3 meritorious promotions in 4 years. I was selected for the MESEP program, Marine Enlisted Commissioning Program, where they're going to pull me out of the enlisted ranks, send me to college for 4 years, bring me back, put me through officer candidate school, and come back as an officer.
Wow.
Rarely, I mean, one out of thousands of Marines get chosen for that. Yet I was still in the back thinking I didn't have a story. And on top of that, after the Marine Corps, I became #1 in 5 separate sales organizations in the corporate world. I teamed up with some people in the online space to produce multiple tens of millions of dollars of results, hosted many live events around the world, have impacted thousands of lives, and just let that simmer in. Like that was from someone who thought, when I was in the Marine Corps, listening to that person who had one leg climb the mountains, that I didn't have a story. So the bottom line of that is, and what that means to you is, regardless of you maybe listening to this thinking, well, great for the one-legged guy and great for Tom who had all that craziness, I don't have a story. Yes, you do. So the way to find your story is to break it down into 5-year chunks in your life. Go from 0 to 5, 6 to 10, 11 to 15, 16 to 20, etc., and break down what are the big events in those 5-year chunks. That's what led to me recognizing, holy crap, I guess I do have a story. For me, it was just my life. That's just what I grew up, and I didn't know anything different. I thought that's what everybody went through. You don't recognize until you're older that you have your unique personality, experience, and perspective. It's up to you to find out what your story is, share your results, and then sell your system. So some people are like, well, great, now I got a story, but I don't have results. Well, that's a work in progress. I mean, I looked in the mirror a few years back, 2010, I was 196 pounds. I grew up as a wrestler. I grew up being in shape, and I got fat and happy, right? And I looked in the mirror, I'm like, what the heck happened to me? Like, it's time for me to make a transition. So in 60 days, I went from 196 pounds to 168 pounds. That was the transformation, right? So your results can be starting with, I looked in the mirror, I saw that I've let myself go. I'm going on a mission to fix that, right? So tell your story, that's part of the story, but also my results. Follow along with me if you want to also make a transformation, and let's do this together, right? So that the story doesn't have to be telling your story and then sharing your results. Your results can be a work in progress. You don't have to have had millions.
You don't
of
have to
dollars
wait for the transformation to tell the story, which is a very, very, very good point.
Yep. And then sell your system. Sell your system. That's well, I don't have a system. Well, you got to create a system. So now it's create your unique mechanism. What's something
you probably
do
have a system, but like your story, you may not have thought of it as a system.
Correct.
You know,
you got it. Yep.
that's
So,
what happened with me. I think with, I thought of myself as a writer, as a copywriter, which can be a very, specific skill, instead of thinking, oh, I can share how I do this. I have a system. I just haven't systemized it yet. I haven't
right.
broken it down. It's not that I
Yep.
don't have a system. I've been doing this 30 years. Obviously, I have a system. I just haven't broken it down. And I haven't thought about, we spend a lot of time thinking, trying to hone our skill set so that we can excel. And then we don't necessarily recognize that it's something we can share and pass on, to the point that we were talking about before. But
right. And so here,
yeah, go ahead.
That actually triggered how my first system came into play. And when I transitioned, it was actually in North Carolina, prior to the discussion I shared earlier about Ricky telling me, you need to get, if you want to impress me, get the same results in half the amount of time.
Right.
On the day of September 11th, 2001, I just moved down to Charlotte 2 months prior in July, on 4th of July weekend in 2001, for this 4-month project of creating the North Carolina home book. 2 months into the 4-month project was 9/11, 2001. We were working hard in the mornings. I had an early morning appointment. I was on the highway heading to the interior designer for a lot of the NASCAR drivers, when I heard on the news a plane had struck the tower. And my mind was like, whoa. I mean, I lived in Manhattan and I don't remember even seeing any planes. That's odd. And then I don't remember what the second event was, but I immediately pulled over on the side of the road. I called my office. We started at 8 a.m. in North Carolina. I called the office. I said, we're under attack. Send everybody home. They're like, what are you talking about? I'm like, turn the radio on, turn the TV on. We're under attack. America's under attack. Send everybody home. While I sat on the side of the road, my sister was filling me in on what she was seeing on the TV screen. And on the side of the road, that's when it hit me that, well, it hit me, I'm not dead yet. That was where it hit me. Like, I'm not invincible. There will come a time when I'm gone. And it also hit me. It said, it might be time for you to start answering the question people have been asking you most of your life. Tom, how do you do it? And I would just give a glib response. I guess I'm lucky. I guess I'm just at the right place at the right time, because I was a national bicycle champion, the #1 honor man out of boot camp, #1 in 5 sales organizations, et cetera. Tom, how do you do it? And I wouldn't give the system. I wouldn't give them the framework. And it said, it hit me on the side of the road, listening to 9/11 and 01, that it might be time to start answering that question for people. It might be time to transition from being the student to also being the teacher. Mm-hmm. And that's when I made the decision to book. And on the side of the road on September 11th, 01 is when I booked in my mind, I'm going to book a hotel and I'm going to give a training. So in October of 01, I booked a hotel and I gave my first training, but I didn't have my system yet. So I asked myself, well, what did I do to become the national bicycle champion, the honor man out of boot camp, #1 in 5 sales organizations? My mind answered with an answer that I didn't like. My mind said it was different for each of them. And I said, well, I don't like that answer. I said, so let me ask a more precise answer. What are 5 common things that I did in each of those areas that allowed me to go from not knowing anything to the top in very quick time? And I posed that question. I went to sleep and I remembered hearing something like, always keep a pen and a pad of paper next to your bed. So I had a pad and pen and paper next to my bed. In the middle of the night, I woke up and just started writing. And I started writing the 5 commonalities, because I narrowed it down to what were the things that I used in all those areas. I narrowed it down to what were the 5 things that were common in each of those things. And so I came up with my success magnet system. And that's exactly what I taught October of 01. And I still teach to this day, my 5-step success magnet system. It's usually an hour-long training, but I'll give you the 5 steps right now. First, it's vision. So bicycle riding, Marine Corps, sales. When I came to a sales organization, I said, hey, who's #1 right now? Because they aren't going to be for long. Like, who's vision? I'm going to be #1. Like, vision, I'm going to be the champion. Vision, I'm going to be the best, right? Having that vision, which follows up to the second step is belief. You got to have belief at a level of knowing. Like, it's just not a matter of, I don't know if maybe I will, maybe I won't. No, I'm going to be #1. It's just a matter of time. I'm going to be the best. It's just a matter of time. When you have that belief in yourself, belief in your company, belief in the product, belief in the service, that's what it takes. Belief in yourself. Like, hey, I'm going to make this happen, right? Belief in the law of cause and effect. I'm going to put the effort in where it's just a matter of time before the results catch up. Third step is identify and align. This is where mentorship comes in. Identify who has already done what you're seeking to accomplish and align yourself to the best of your abilities. And nowadays, it's easy as heck. We can tap into podcasts, we can tap into YouTube, buy their books, audio books, all the trainings, the courses, the live events, all that stuff. Identify and align. Find that person who's accomplished what you're seeking to accomplish or something similar. 4th step is commitment to action. You got to be willing to take the steps. You got to be willing to step out of your comfort zone. You got to be willing to do the work, whether you feel like it or not. you got to have that commitment, that dedication to, you can get the roadmap, but if you're not willing to get on the road and drive and take the proper turns, you aren't going to reach the destination. So commitment to action. And I'll say improper action always beats proper inaction, right? So be willing to fail forward fast. And then the fifth step, which I call the secret step, is have fun. Like, this journey's brief, man. You got to have fun. While you're climbing that mountain, you're going to scrape your knee, you're going to fall down, you might sprain your wrist. Have fun still, regardless of external circumstance, still have fun. So those are the 5-step success magnet system that came from the side of the road, me asking myself the question, having a wrong answer, asking a more precise answer, what are the 5 common things, and letting my mind percolate on it. And then from me being the person who put in all that great work of reading and listening and all that stuff, I'm kind of like the Jim Rohn, Tony Robbins thing. And that's the other, like, a lot of stuff I teach is from Tony, Brian, Zig, Joe Vitale, all my friends. Like, the good information in leads to good information out. So I didn't come up with this stuff. Like, I'm just like Jim taught Tony. I've learned from all the giants, right? So I've stood on the shoulders of the giants.
Well, we're all unique. Yeah, but we're all unique. And so our absorption of information and input and what we do with it is going to get filtered through our human, being that we are, and that's another interesting discussion. But I think, the knowing is so important, because belief, it's great to have faith or belief in something else, right? Something other than yourself. I have faith that this person is going to accomplish this. I have belief that they're going to, because we don't control it. But for ourselves, we have to have certainty. It has to be, I'm certain that I'm going to do this because it's up to me to do it. I can have faith that someone else is going to come through, or someone will do the right thing, or whatever it might be. But as we wrap this up, and this has been an awesome interview, because I think there's so much that the audience can get from it. But you're in St. Thomas, you're valuing time and quality of life and experience over hours, clocked on the punch card. What is a closing thought that you can leave the audience with about lifestyle and happiness versus hours spent?
Man, that's so awesome. And that's the real measure, right? Like, right now, the real boss play is happiness, joy, time freedom, and the financial results and health, relationships, finances, living a life that is a dream come true. And first, you have to give yourself permission to accept that you are worthy of leading a life that is your dream come true. And that reminds me of a conversation I had with one of my business partners. We're in Long Island, late night. We worked hard. We did a multi-million-dollar launch, and I was still driving an older, nice car. But he's like, when are you going to get your dream car? I said, man, I hadn't even thought of that. He's like, what is your dream car? A Ferrari or Lamborghini? I said, no. I said, an Acura NSX. He's like, oh yeah, those are sweet. He's like, so when are you getting one? I was like, I didn't even give myself permission to get one. Like, so even after I'd achieved some success, I didn't think I was worthy of it. So I went on eBay that night in 2006, found one with 22,222 miles on it. And you might remember my son was born on 2/22/2002.
Right.
So I said, this is my car. Like, I'm buying this car. And I bought it on eBay. I won the bid. I flew out the next day to Texas to drive it home to New York the following day. And it was a long drive from South Texas, but it was worth it. It was fun. So anyhow, that's part A. Part B is, so giving yourself permission to turn, yes, I'm worthy of having my dreams come true. Part B is this analogy that I teach people is, life is like a brief trip to the most amazing amusement park in the universe here on Earth. As a human, you got this most amazing vehicle. We already talked about how valuable this $1 trillion vehicle is, most coveted vehicle in the universe, at the most amazing amusement park in the universe. And if you recall, just like when we're here on Earth and we take our family to the amusement park, whether it's for a day, 2 days, 3 days, or a week, it's over like that. It's over fast. What you're not doing at the amusement park is sitting in the side worrying about the ride you took 10 rides ago, or complaining about how that sucks so bad. You're actually in the moment focused on what's next. And so the lesson is, what's next? And for you to discern and trust out of health, relationships, and finances, what's mine to do now is the common question that you want to ask yourself over and over and over again. And it's literally like the amusement park. Okay, we rode that. What's next? We're going to ride this again, or are we going somewhere else? And if you're choosing, okay, where are we going? And we're going to walk with a purpose to get there as fast as and efficiently as possible, and ask people along the way how to get there. Sometimes when you get there, the ride's closed, didn't work out like planned. You don't sit there and cry. Okay, where are we going to go now? Okay, cool. Discern what that is and walk there with a purpose. So it's a continual life at the greatest. Life is like the greatest music park in the universe, and it's a continual what's next. And that's living intentionally. That's living with passion. That's living with purpose. That's living with joy. And it's living with you, discerning continually and trusting your discernment between your health, your relationships, and your finances. What's mine to do right now? Mine to do right now was to be here fully present with you, Hersh, on this, and with you as a listener. Our paths are going to cross, sometimes very soon, sometimes years from now. But I chose that what was mine to do now, what Hersh was to do now was to host this. What mine was to do, to be here, be open to the questions, to go where it needs to go, deliver the insights that I felt were mine to deliver. What was yours to do is to choose to be here for this. Once this is over, I've got things to do. And there's a whole bunch of things. It's up to me to discern what's mine to do. And then here's the other key. This is from the book from Dale Carnegie, How to Stop Worrying and Start Living. Live in day-tight compartments. Like I tried to accomplish a week's worth of work in one day. And I still get a lot done. I get a lot more done in a day than I get a lot more done. I guess it's from the Marine Corps or whatever, more in a few hours than most people get done in a day. But don't try to get 2 days worth of work done in a day. Know that if you're discerning what's mine to do now, and oh, by the way, when you're in workaholic mode, I was under the false impression that that answer had to be a revenue producing activity. Sometimes what's mine to do now is to turn this off and go spend time with my kids, turn this off and go spend time with my significant other. Turn this off and go take care of myself. Remember, you're the caretaker of yourself, your health, mental, physical, emotional, spiritual health. You need to discern all aspects, what's mine to do now. And you'll get really good at that. And you can trust your kick-ass problem-solving abilities, trust your personality, experience, and perspective that you're going to get from where you are to where you want to be. You'll improvise, you'll adapt, you'll overcome any obstacles that come your way, but you need to continually discern what's mine to do now. And as long as you're doing that, you're living a life intentionally. As Napoleon Hill calls in his book, Outwitting the Devil, you're a non-drifter, which is only 2%, 2 out of 100 versus 98 out of 100 who are drifters. They're going where life's pushing them. They're doing things because they feel they have to do it. You're doing everything by choice from your discerning the answer to it. What's mine to do now? Let that simmer, let that settle in and live your life. Know that it's going to be brief. My mom passed at 52 years old, diagnosed and gone of cancer in 2007. My dad, 2 years later in 2009, was diagnosed and gone of cancer at 56. I had my own near-death experiences, which lead to, I got two in particular near-death experiences I talk about, and you are not dead yet. This journey is brief. The key is live before you're gone. Like you're going to get escorted out of this amusement park soon, and soon is relative. Like but just think back how quickly the days go in amusement parks. Decades go fast here. None of us are guaranteed a finish of today. None of us are guaranteed it tomorrow, next week, and next month. Go for it now. What's yours to do now? Do it. W. Clement Soames' famous quote, do it now, do it now, do it now.
All right.
If you liked the show,
Yes, and?
it worked for you,
Yes, then?
subscribe and leave a
Yes, friend.
5-star review.
Yes, friend.
Tell all your friends.
Yes, friend.
Get your branding here.
Yes, friend.
Get your branding here.
Yes, friend.
Did I make it clear?
Yes, friend.
Get your branding on
Yes.
before they're gone.